Hello, this is Communication, a Personal Look by Stephanie Johnston. Why does communication matter? I believe all people have an innate need to be known. This is because they've been created uniquely by a creator and they bear his image. Genesis 1:27 tells us, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them." Deep inside the heart of every human is the knowledge and longing for something more. Listening well and truly hearing a person can be the first step in helping them feel known. If I can communicate in a way that helps others feel known, I can help point them to the one who placed that desire in their heart. The NIV Women's Devotional Bible says, "We were created in the image of one paradigm of perfection, our Creator. Our height, weight, and skin color may indicate our human origins, but our soul and our spirit reflect our sovereign God." The anchor for my communication plan is the same as my anchor for life, Jesus Christ. His name and renown are what I live for. The life verse that would anchor my communication plan is from the book of Matthew, one of the 4 Gospels of Jesus Christ. Matthew 5:16 says, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Interpersonal communication is crucial in reaching this goal. In order to let my light shine before others, I need to be clear in communicating with them. I cannot risk a messy, unclear message. I am an ambassador for Christ in my words and my actions. All I do to communicate with others must be done in love. A little background information on me to provide context for communication is to understand a little bit about my Uniquely You profile. This is an assessment that tells you where you fall on the DISC profile. My Uniquely You profile that I took in 2020 says others perceive me as an SI. This is an outgoing personality described as being inspiring and submissive. Others often see me as engaging in large crowds. They expect me to bring joy, enthusiasm, and encouragement to them. I'm perceived as the perfect people person. I'm just as comfortable in large and small crowds. I'm perceived as empathetic and compassionate, and I communicate my empathy openly. I can be viewed as prioritizing people over projects and relationships over tasks. That same profile says that my true reality, the true version of myself, is actually an SCI blend, not an SI blend as I'm perceived. The SCI blend shares some similarities with the SI, but also looks at how I benefit from being with others and being alone. I think this is crucial to understand, also because I'm an only child, so I think that plays into my need to be with others and alone to recharge. I can be critical and fault-finding with others, particularly when I lack margin in my life. I'm friendly, enthusiastic, and outgoing, and people tend to like me. I like peace and harmony and organization. One complaint others might have about me is that I can be indecisive and that I need to be more direct. This might be related to my need to verbally process, but it may not. That's just a theory of mine. I tend to be a peacemaker in conflict, and when I speak, people trust that I've researched and I'm knowledgeable about the topic at hand. As a learner, I would agree with that statement as well. Some barriers to effective communication that I learned more about and understand more clearly now after taking this course were found primarily for me in the book Why Don't We Listen Better by Jim Peterson. Some key takeaways from that book for me were just that my communication habits are just that, they're habits. So just like my Uniquely You profile stated, I know that people value my advice. And over my lifetime, people have come to me for advice. They come seeking answers. And because I believe God's given me the gift of wisdom, I have given those answers. However, I realized in reading this book that I'm actually doing them a bit of a disservice by not allowing them to come to those conclusions and almost counsel themselves to give themselves the advice. So that was my first barrier to effective communication, is that I can give advice. A second one for me is that is in the area of perception. I often assign meaning and value to what people are saying and what they're not communicating, their nonverbal and verbal communication. But in the book, Bridges Not Walls by Jon Stewart, I was reminded I'm not the only person in a conversation that's doing that. The speaker and the listener are both communicating throughout the conversation, and we both have a perception of what's happening and what's being said and being left unsaid. So I have to ensure that I'm communicating the message I wish to communicate. And a third barrier I struggle with is not making an analysis. As Franz and Weichel discuss in their book, Helping Skills for Human Service Workers, an analysis is when I describe my opinion of how things got to be the way they are. So similar to advice, it's when I come alongside someone and explain why they are in the predicament they're in, rather than just asking questions or seeking to learn more. And so the analysis may be correct, but it's still not helpful in conversation, and it doesn't help when the goal is good listening. So the way I hope to overcome these communication barriers are to tackle them head on. So with advice, I want to listen thoughtfully to the speaker. I want to ask only clarifying questions and always point back to them to give their own advice. So if they tell me a story, I can ask them, do you think that was helpful? Or how did blank respond when you said or did that? When I allow them to discern the effectiveness of their strategy, I'm actually empowering them to not only solve that problem, but future problems. As Why Don't We Listen Better 2015 states, when asked a question, we ask a question. So that's a new strategy for me that I want to implement. Perception is rather than making assumptions, I want to speak clearly about what I mean. If I'm tired or if I'm feeling unwell and I know my body language is going to reflect differently than I want, I need to be upfront with the person I'm talking to about that in advance. And when I finish speaking, I could even ask some questions like, what I want to communicate is my feeling of blank at this situation. Is that what you heard? And ask them some clarifying questions to be sure they understand what I wanted to get at and see if I actually reached that point. And then in analysis, I need to ask open-ended questions, listen carefully and empathetically, and repeat what the speaker has said at each pause. So not repeating everything they've said, but if they said, I spoke to my husband and I just feel like he wasn't listening, I just repeat, he wasn't listening, you say, so that they know I'm listening, I'm empathetic, I'm tracking with them, but I'm not trying to explain why it is that I think their husband wasn't listening in that situation. My action plan going forward is practice, 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 and then a little more practice. Seriously, I want to begin applying these ideas with my family and friends, and then gradually to everyone that I'm meeting with. One of the key areas I want to do this is by holding my tongue. This is the hardest area for me. I enjoy banter and the back and forth in conversation, asking lots of questions, but as Peterson said, teeth marks in the tongue are one sign of a good listener, and I want to be known as a good listener. I'm going to avoid advice, and every time I'm tempted to give advice, I'm going to ask a question. So that's my simple AA reminder. When I'm tempted to give advice, I'm going to ask a question. And then finally, I'm going to print and use the Talker Listener card from the back of our book, our Why Don't We Listen Better book, to just work well in conversation with other people, have it present, and hopefully even help improve some other conversations, especially in my family where I'm raising 3 young women who I want to be good communicators as well. In conclusion, James 1:22 through 25 gives us a command of what to do with Scripture. It says, "Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, will be blessed in what they do." While this is specifically referring to listening to and applying Scripture, I can learn a valuable lesson from these words as well. If I take this class and I complete these assignments and I get a good grade, that's me being a hearer. But if I take these principles, I apply them, and I become a better listener, that's me being a doer. May we all be not just hearers, but doers of this word. Thank you.